Mark Twain wrote, "All of a sudden, bang, 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 goes 3 or 4 guns. The boys jumped for the river, both of them hurt, and as they swam down the current, the men run along the bank shooting at them and singing out, 'Kill them, kill them.' It made me so sick. I wished I hadn't ever come ashore that night to see such things." The passage has Huck Finn describing the savage murder of 2 teenage boys that resulted from an ongoing family feud. The story is fictional, but when Mark Twain wrote it in 1884, feuding was common in all the southern states, especially in Appalachia, where rival clans fought each other with fierce intensity well into the 20th century. Twain had one of his characters explain it in this way. A man has a quarrel with another man and kills him. Then the other man's brother kills him. And the other brother on both sides go for one another, and the cousins chip in. And by, everybody's killed off, and there ain't no more feud. But it's kind of a slow and takes a long time. The most famous of these bloody feuds was the long war between what families? Okay. You know your Appalachian history. The Hatfields and the McCoys, who lived on opposite sides of the border between Kentucky and West Virginia. The origins of the feud are not truly known for sure, but according to some sources, the trouble began in 1878 with a dispute over the ownership of 2 razorback hogs. At its fiercest point, groups of 50 or more heavily armed men conducted raids across the state line. By the time the last killing took place, around the mid-1890s, both families had been decimated. Nearly 20 years of death over 2 pigs. As we continue our series on the 10 Commandments, we come to one that I imagine most of us don't give much thought to. After all, who of us ever seriously considers killing someone? I know, if some boy hurts my daughter's feelings, I'm going, okay, I'll go take care of him. But it's never serious. We don't take it that way. You know, why do we even need to do this? Think about it. But remember where the children of Israel had just come from. Living as slaves in Egypt, God's gift of life seemed cheap. Death was such a constant that it was more easily accepted, if you can imagine that. The infant mortality rate in some countries, even today, is so high that parents don't even name their children to start with. Why waste a good name on somebody that probably won't make it? Let's wait and see if he lives. There's a cemetery behind the church that's across the road from our house. Susan and I were exploring it recently, and I found myself feeling very sad reading tombstones of infants who had died over 100 years ago. You know, those little tombstones with a little lamb on top, and the death date being the same as the birth date sometimes. And I couldn't help but feel the pain of those parents who were also buried by now. I just felt, wow, the pain that was at this spot at some time over the loss of a little one. But in cultures where the infant mortality rate is very high, parents can be rather stoical about the loss of a little one. There was a security guard on our campus in Kenya. We often talked, and I consider him my friend to this day. In fact, I got to see him when our school took a mission trip to Kenya last January. But our outlooks are quite different. I heard, after our family got back from a leave, that one of his children had died. I felt so badly that I had not been there for him. I found him as quickly as I could as he was patrolling our campus. I expressed my concern for the situation, and he said, yeah, that happened. It's fine. I was like, what? Oh, yeah, it's fine. I have other kids. I was like, I don't get this. So I explore it a little further. I said, well, how's your wife taking it? Oh, she's fine. She knows we can make another one. I'm like, wow. And I had to remember, I'm in a different place, a different culture. I'm a bit confused by this reaction, but I know that various cultures deal with grief differently and how they express it publicly and to each other. I found myself in shock once again when one of our faculty couples, who were also from a different culture, lost an infant child. They grieved openly but differently. They were given no privacy, day nor night. Church members from their culture came and would not leave the house. They sang hymns all night long. You know, my culture, I'd be going, get out, give me some peace. But all night they're singing hymn after hymn and then expecting the poor mother to fix breakfast for them all in the morning. But it was the burial of that child that got to me. There's a section in the cemetery near Nairobi that's only for infants. There were over a dozen open graves that day, just for that day. There were 3 graveside services happening simultaneously. It's like the 3 preachers, including me, were kind of almost back to back, talking to different congregations, each one of us raising our voices higher and higher to be heard by those that we were trying to talk to. And to make matters worse, in comes the vendors, pushing carts. Phone time, Celltel, Safaricom, get your phone time. Or ice cream, we have ice cream. Walking among those that were in the cemetery. I was like, wow, I'm out of my element. And people were buying it. Oh yeah, I need some Safaricom for my phone. I want some of that Dairyland ice cream. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I am in a different world. All of this made me wonder about the value we put on human life. Maybe this is why God knew it was necessary to include this commandment that seems like common sense to you and me. Why do I have to be reminded not to kill? God needs to instill in his people once again the value he places on human life that he created in his image. Look with me at Exodus chapter 20. As we continue this series on the Tender Commandments. Exodus chapter 20. You better get there fast because this is very short. Exodus 20, verse 13. You shall not murder, period. That's our text. In Hebrew, this commandment is only 2 words. Lal teresh, literally read as, not you shall murder. In English, this commandment is just 4 words long. King James translates it as, thou shalt not kill. Other translations, including the New King James, translates it, you shall not murder. This is actually more accurate, both linguistically and theologically. This agrees with the rest of the Bible, where we find that killing in self-defense or war, capital punishment, etc., are sometimes acceptable or even commanded by God. Ecclesiastes even says this, there's a time to kill. Strange, but the word is different than the one in the 10 Commandments, which means murder. So like I said, few of us seriously think about murdering someone, so we tend to ignore this commandment. This is for other people, like last year in Knoxville, for those 24 people that committed murders in Knoxville last year. This commandment, they should have listened to this. Like the man I have told you about before that threatened to murder me in Nairobi. He wasn't successful, by the way. I'm not capable of murder. Am I? Well, I'm not so sure. Turn with me to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5. Here, Jesus shows us that it is not just about what we actually do, it's also about what we think. Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 21. You have heard it that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. That scared me when I read it as a kid because I'd called somebody a fool. I'm like, uh-oh. Wow, what am I thinking? We have 2 cats that live inside our house. You've heard of them, Asali and her son that she gave birth to in Kenya, Savo. Asali is the Kiswahili word for honey, and she is so sweet. Savo is the Maasai word for place of destruction. He's not as destructive as he was as a kitten. He's also now considered very sweet. There's nothing that Asali and Savo love more than someone to provide a lap and to sleep and purr on. You know the scene. Can you come help me in the kitchen? No, I have a cat on my lap. Can't move. But what else sleeps? I also know that lions sleep up to 20 hours a day, even 24 hours a day if their bellies are full. I also know that if I was smaller and Asali was larger, she would stalk me through the house just like she used to stalk gazelles in our front yard. She would have the same interest in me that she had in the sparrows at the bird feeder. She has the brain and the instinct of her lion cousins. We have 2 outdoor cats as well, Ronnie and Romeo, they came with a house. Romeo is a great hunter. I cannot tell you how many piles of feathers and squirrel tails I have found around our house. I'm fully aware that as loving as he seems, if I was smaller and he was bigger, our relationship would be different. Jesus is warning us that our size and ability does not matter. If you have the mind and heart of a lion, you are a lion. Proverbs 23:7 says this, for as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's who you are. You are what you think. As my dad used to tell me often, if you think about something long enough, you will do it. Jesus is after our thoughts. Look again at Matthew 5, verse 21. You have heard it said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever's angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whoever says to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Jesus is not just saying the same thing 3 different ways. He's showing us the progressions of our thoughts that lead to murder. Angry. There are 2 Greek words for anger. One is thymos. Anger as in, you get mad, but you don't want to be that way. You want to heal the relationship. You can get mad at someone for acting in a harmful way. You want them to stop because you love them, or you can get angry for being hurt, but you bring it quickly under control. The other word is orgidzo. Anger as in, you get mad and you like it. You know the feeling. I saw the expressions on your face. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Kind of relish it of it. Ooh, I'm so mad. I can think of all kinds of ways I could get back. And you start muttering under your breath. Okay, you're liking it. And so that's what orgidzo means. You relish it. You think of a way to get back at a person for what they did to you. A vengeful spirit, unforgiving, and anger that smolders for great lengths of time. I remember when you said that to me 13 years ago. It's like it was yesterday. This is the word that Jesus uses in this text. What about raka? This word shows that you have stepped beyond anger and have become insulting to another person. Raka basically is an insult showing contempt. It means empty, as you're empty-headed, we would say numbskull. Fool, the Greek word is moros. Guess what word we get from that? Yeah, I heard it, moron. This is no ordinary fool like raka. This is a moral fool. This term is used to destroy the credibility and reputation of a person. This term means that the world would be a better place without you. This is how the Holocaust was justified. We would be better off if that race wasn't here. They used this method to destroy the reputation of Jesus. They accused him of being a seditionist, a heretic, a blasphemer. When destroying his reputation didn't work, what did they do? They committed murder. Maybe you came from a home, maybe you came home from school and your mother knew something was wrong. When she found out that someone had been calling you names, she told you this little thing that you should say. Sticks and what? Shall break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Your mother was a liar. I'm sorry, I'm sure she's a good person, but it does hurt, doesn't it? It hurts a lot more than we would like to admit. It hurts deeply, and it can destroy your reputation. They can crush your spirit. This is why gossip is such a harmful habit. You're playing with murder. To kill someone's reputation takes life away from them. Name-calling by children should be disciplined by adults, whether it's parents or teachers. But this text says that name-calling by adults will be disciplined by God. Proverbs 17, verse 22 says this: "A merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones." Jesus is warning us about the path of murder, but this is nothing new. You remember the story of Cain and Abel? You know how they were going to offer sacrifices to God. Who was going to offer the sacrifices? Both of them. These are church members. They're both offering sacrifices to God. And I know we had a sermon series on this a while back. But Cain got jealous because God accepted the sacrifice that Abel gave, which was the way God had asked it to be done. And God warned Cain, hey, Satan's waiting at your door if you allow this anger to continue. And he did. And the next thing you know, we have the first murder because anger turned to hatred, turned to murder. Sin was indeed crouching at the door like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Turn with me to Ephesians chapter 4. New Testament, after Galatians, Ephesians chapter 4. Look at verse 26. Verse 26 says, "Be angry and do not sin." Is that possible? Absolutely. We saw Jesus get angry in the temple, didn't we? Did he sin? No. Be angry, the word "and" can also be translated as "yet." Be angry, yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath. If we took this to heart, we would be happier, wouldn't we? Especially in our homes. Don't let anger go to bed with you. Deal with it. It doesn't say don't be angry. It just says don't let it hang on. Deal with it. Heal that relationship. Verse 27 follows and says, nor give place to the devil. That's what happens if you let it get a foothold. In fact, some translations say, don't give the devil a foothold. Don't allow it to hang in there or it will get a foothold. It doesn't need much of one either. I used to enjoy a sport called rock climbing, with all the ropes and carabiners and harnesses and helmets and all of that stuff. Now I think about it, and just thinking about it gives me the heebie-jeebies and the willies at the same time. I'm like, wow, what was I thinking? That's scary stuff. But I learned in rock climbing, and I wasn't an expert by any means, but all I needed was a ledge 1/4 of an inch wide to have a foothold. That's all I needed to have. In fact, I found that to be a luxury. Oh, that's a good foothold right there. I will rest my life on that. Satan doesn't need much to get his foot in the door. Don't even let him get a toenail in the door of your anger. Don't give him an inch, 1/2 an inch, or 1/4 of an inch. Don't let him get his little nasty foot in the door. That's all he needs to worm his way into your heart. Verse 31 says, let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. Both words for anger are used here. Verse 32 says, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God in Christ forgave you. This world has been a violent place since the children of our first parents. Everywhere we look, we see and hear about atrocities that wrench our hearts. Even with hearts that have been desensitized to death and violence and anger. How do we desensitize? By the things that we allow in. Movies, television, music, video games, and the daily news. Parents, know what your kids are doing on the computer. Are they allowing some of these things into their hearts that should not be allowed there? Are they allowing a foothold of the enemy? We stand in horror to see how cruel humans created in the image of God can be. Homicide, abortion, infanticide, suicide, genocide, and just about every other kind of side you can think of, along with all the other horrible things people do to each other, distress the soul. So what can we do about it? We can ask God to help us keep his commandments in our hearts, in our minds. We know that by beholding, we become changed. Have you ever noticed, don't look around, you'll make people feel funny. Look at the oldest couples in our church. They look like each other. Have you noticed? A lot of them really look like each other. What have they been seeing year after year after year, every single day? By beholding, they become changed. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I've also noticed pets look like their owners too. I don't know what that's about. Our hearts and minds and the hearts and minds of our children must be guarded against what the world wants them to behold, against what we want our children to become. But we must be more than guardians of the hearts and minds, or we will simply end up with empty hearts and empty heads. We must allow Jesus to come in. We must introduce people to Jesus. The more of him that we receive, the more wrong influences that are already there will be pushed out. The more of him we receive, the less room there is for anything else. As 2 Corinthians 3 says, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory are being transformed into his likeness with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. If this is not the direction of our lives, then given the same circumstances, we would be no different than the feuding Hatfields and McCoys. We're two hogs, and having our own way is of more value than God's amazing gift of life. This morning I did something for you. I brushed my teeth. My toothpaste. And you know what happened this morning? I opened up this tube of toothpaste, just like this. And I squeezed it, I put it under pressure, and there it comes. Do you know what came out? Any ideas? Toothpaste? What makes you think that? Kind of looks like mashed potatoes. Maybe that's mashed potatoes. Maybe that's antibiotic cream. It's vanilla pudding. That's what it is. Let me see. Minty, fresh toothpaste. Isn't that remarkable? That I squeezed this and toothpaste came out. Do you know why toothpaste came out of here? Any idea? Because somebody put it in there. And that's why it came out when it was squeezed. When you and I get squeezed, what comes out? You ever feel squeezed? Under pressure? Somebody really got to you. What comes out? I'll tell you what comes out. What comes out is exactly what you put in. If you put in vengeance, hatred, anger, that's what's going to come out. If you put in Jesus Christ, if you put in kindness, when you're squeezed by people, circumstances, challenges, troubles, problems, the IRS, the Lord knows that what will come out is what you put in. And I pray that we will all put out the life of Christ, the love and grace and forgiveness that he has for our lives. May we be filling ourselves with that so that we won't be put on the path to killing each other.